G'day, you mate. How you going? Today we're continuing our unit on area by looking at converting area units. Okay, now we should be familiar somewhat with converting units in one dimension. So we know that centi stands for 100, so that there's 100 centimeters in a meter. Okay, millimeter stands for 1,000, so there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter. Okay, but there's also 10 millimeters in a centimeter. And then we know that kilo stands for 1,000 too. And so 1,000 meters are in a kilometer. Okay, so we should be pretty across these conversions in one dimension. But what we're looking at today is we're looking at what happens when we're converting units between that have two dimensions. So area, okay, we know is sort of like a plane. It has a length and a width when we are measuring area. So we call that two dimensions, okay? Or two different opposite directions or perpendicular directions create those two dimensions, okay? Now, imagine if I had, let's say this was 1 centimeter, and I wanted to break that down into millimeters. I would have to break into 10 little bits. So we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, not perfectly to scale, but we've broken down that one dimension into millimeters because there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. And let's pretend that we extend those lines perfectly straight upwards. As you can see how perfectly straight those lines are. Okay, but what happens if we were to also break down the other dimension, divide that by 10 as well? Okay, so we'll to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then we extended that along as such. Okay, and you can see the idea is the amount of square millimeters. So here's 1 square millimeter. We had 10 across in one dimension. We're going to have 10 up in the other direction. And so there's going to be 100 in total. So we know that there's going to be 100 millimeters squared in a centimeter squared. Okay, so when converting units of area, we need to square the conversion unit, the conversion factor. Okay, so if the conversion factor was 10, then when we get to area units, it's going to be 100, 10 squared. Okay, if the conversion factor was 100 in one dimension, it's going to be 10,000. Okay, that's 100 squared. If you just add 2 zeros on, you get 10,000. Okay, and then if you have 1,000 as your conversion factor, that's going to become 1,000,000. So you need to remember these, but you should be able to work out what these are. This is 2 dimensions. Okay, you don't need to memorize that 10,000 centimeters squared equals 1 meter squared. If you know that 100 centimeters is 1 meter and you square that difference of 100, you get to 10,000. Okay, so all you're doing is squaring that conversion factor to get the area conversion factor. Okay, so there are 2 things that we need to know to convert. We need to know what the conversion factor is, and then we need to know are we going to multiply by that conversion factor, or are we going to divide by that conversion factor? So this is my little thing that helps me remember which way to go. So if I'm going from a big unit to a smaller unit, I'm going to need more of those units to measure the thing that I'm measuring. Okay, I could measure it in meters, say, but if I was to measure in centimeters, I'm going to need more of those, okay, because centimeters are smaller. So I'm going to multiply the quantity, the number of units that I'll need. If my units are getting bigger, so I'm going from small units to big units, let's say I ran 1,500 meters. Now, if I was to say that in kilometers, it would only be 1.5 kilometers. I don't need as many kilometers to measure the same distance. Okay, so I'm going to need less of them. I'm going to divide that quantity by that conversion factor. Okay, so if my units are getting smaller, I need more. I'm going to multiply the number of them. If my units are getting bigger, I need less of them. I'm going to divide the number of them. So let's do a few examples to finish up here. So in this example, I'm going from meters squared to centimeters squared. Okay, so I know that the difference is going to be the conversion factor 100 squared. So the difference is going to be 10,000. but I'm getting smaller units, so I need more of them. So it's going to be 8 times 10,000. Okay, it's 10,000 because it's just 100 squared. All right, and that will become 80,000 centimeters squared. Okay, so the difference between centimeters and meters when we're talking about area units is drastic. Okay, they get much bigger, much quicker because we're squaring that difference. Okay, and for B, I'm going from centimeters squared to millimeters squared. The conversion factor between centimeters and millimeters is 10. So when it's area, it's going to be 100. And I'm getting smaller units, so I need more of them. So it's going to be 3 times 100, which equals 300 millimeters squared. Okay, now in these examples, we're going from millimeters to centimeters. My units are getting bigger. So centimeters are bigger than millimeters. I'm going to need to divide the quantities. So I have 850, and the conversion factor 10 squared is going to be 100. So I'm going to divide by 100, and I get 8.5 centimeters squared. Okay, remember to write your units at the end to know what you've finished at. And then for B, I'm going from centimeters to meter, so my units are getting bigger. I need less of them. I'm going to divide. The conversion factor is going to be 10,000, okay, 100 squared. So I just simply take my 250,000, divide it by 10,000. Now, you can use a calculator for this, or you can use techniques. So if I have 4 zeros, I can cancel off 4 zeros of this, and it's going to give me 25 meters squared. But if you're in doubt, just pop it in your calculator. Make sure you get the right amount of zeros. You got to count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, and I get my answer 25. Okay, so the two things you need to know are what is the conversion factor, and then square it when you're doing units of area. And then am I going to multiply or am I going to divide? Okay, good luck with the questions today and enjoy the weekend when it comes. And I'll see you later.